You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. On the world's greatest radio, we go where you go, and this is radio the way it should be heard. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and he is on the line, and we are going to be ready to, in a few moments, to take your calls, and we like to thank you for tuning in to listening, because you help make the show. And we certainly like to thank you for that. Now, Mr. Fuller is the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, which is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism and white supremacy. We're going to be speaking about that book. And as far as I know, we're still a little bit short on donations. So let me get that out the way real quick. You know, we'd like for you to donate, so all you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage and hit the donate button. Then under the donate button, add your pledge, then click the total. Then click continue to above the charge cards. Then you want to fill in the pledge information, and then you would click it, and then you are complete with that. And for those who would like to mail it in, you can do that by going to K&E World Network, LLC, doing business as Talktainment Radio. That is 462 Walnut Street, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio, 43206. And on that one, please be sure to add your email address so that Ed Dozier can get it. And you would do that to edozier@talktainmentradio.com. And then he will send you out your tax-deductible receipt, and then everything will be good. Now, I'm trying to speak slowly, as a caller indicated last week, but I will repeat that information again, and as soon as we get that amount in, then I won't have to do this no more. So we're a little slow on that, so don't stop. And those of you who have done that, we appreciate that. William from Texas, Roger from Edinburgh, England, thank you. Charles from Bowling Green, Ohio, Sonny and Lisa from Charlotte, North Carolina, we thank you, and the many others. If I didn't call your name, don't worry, I probably will at some point in time, but thank you for all the donations. Mr. Fuller is, again, the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, and I will have him discuss that. Also, I'm going to start off today's program, our 2 hours, and thank you for that, from 9 until 11. What we're going to do is have Mr. Fuller speak on a couple of subjects, and then when I give you the signal, you can call in. Don't do it right now. Just listen right now. We're going to have Mr. Fuller speak, and then I'll give you the numbers to call in or the Gmail address. And concerning Gmails, I may not be able to read your Gmail on today's show, but I will get the opportunity at some point to read it. So just write in, and we'll do that. I have several Gmails I'm going to do that we will read today. Okay. I strongly suggest that you get this copy. I have my copy right in front of me of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And Mr. Fuller, well, let's start off by talking about the book. Speak about the book, and a caller or somebody wrote me and wanted to know when can we get the book and what are the latest updates on the book.
The latest update is just about the same as it has been, and that is about roughly 12 days to 15 days from now. It should be up. That's a prolonged time. The book hasn't been available for practically a month, but that will be compensated for, presumably, in about 12 to 15 days. At the very outside, about 15 days. in which case you can go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And at that site, if you go there now, you will see that the book is temporarily out of stock. That's how it's labeled. But in 12 to 15 days, if you go to producejustice.com, the basic book and the additional word guide should be up. It should be at that site, producejustice.com.
All righty. Now that's one of our listeners wanted to write in about that, and you clearly define that information. Okay, Mr. Fuller, starting off today's program, what would you like to start today's program with? There have been several things in the news, Muhammad Ali's funeral, and then the eulogy particularly by Dr. Kevin Cosby. I don't know if you had a chance to see that. Also the shooting in Orlando. But what say you that is on your mind that you would like to start off today's program with?
I'd like to start off with a clarification, or you might say a little additional clarification, hopefully, of what might have been misunderstood about something that I said on a previous program, maybe about 2 weeks ago. I was asked at the last minute or so of one of the programs about, did I have any white friends? And my answer was abruptly, no. And I didn't get the chance to explain that, because everything that is asked and answered according to compensatory counter-racist codification, you should be able to explain why you're saying what you're saying. Otherwise, you shouldn't be saying it. And so I wanted to say why, presumably, I don't have a white friend. First of all, I'd like to explain, no white person has ever told me in my entire time that I've been on this planet that he or she was a friend of mine. Now, sometimes people are your friends, I guess, but they don't ever tell you. But in the system of white supremacy, in all the years I've been here, I've never heard a white person even say that Neely Fuller is a friend of mine. I've never had that label from a white person. I've had it from black people, but I've never had it from a white person in all the years I've been on the planet. I've never had a white person tell someone else that they were, that I was a friend of theirs, or they were a friend of mine. So my answer is no, but then on the other hand, I might have a white friend that I don't know about. That's in the minds of the people who are listening to this program. So, but that's never been told to me. So if I did have one, the person could step forward and say that they are one, and then, according to counter-racist codification, since we're in a system of white supremacy, how would that white person, if he or she said that he or she was a friend of Neely Fuller, how would they define that word? What would that actually mean in practical terms? Because, according to counter-racist concepts, I will say this flat out, the white supremacists, and we are under the system of white supremacy, all the people on the planet who are people of color are subject to the system of white supremacy. The white supremacists do not allow their victims to have friends. That's a flat statement I'm making. And so that clears up that air right there. The white supremacists do not allow people of color to have friends. And we're only in the system of white supremacy. If you're a victim of white supremacy, you don't have any friends, because the white supremacists whom you are a victim of do not allow that in the pure sense of having a friend. So what is a friend? A friend, first of all, has to be a person that practices justice. So from that definition, no one on the planet has friends, because justice does not exist anywhere on the planet. So you have associates. If you're going to look at it from a pure viewpoint, and codification is all about purity, all about truth, all about truth. That word friend is just kicked around all kinds of ways, you know. I mean, there's a song. I've heard songs down through the years where people use the word friend. They said, one line in a song I heard from years, and it's been repeated in one form or another. I didn't have any money. All of my friends thought that was funny. Now think about that. You didn't have any money, you're destitute, you're falling on hard times, but you say your friends are laughing at you, and you call those friends? So the word friend has been kicked around, just like that word love, very loosely. Words should not be loose. They should mean something. And we got to pin down a lot of words because there are hundreds of words. That's why I came out with this word guide.
Mm-hmm.
There are hundreds of words that don't have clear definitions. People just say anything. The word love is one of them. The word friend is one of them. Oh, I love this person. I love that person. Well, where's the proof? And what do you mean by it anyway? Oh, I feel so much love. I mean, and then you look at some of the things that the person does, and you say, you call that love? I killed her because I loved her, Your Honor. People have said that in court. And that word friend runs right alongside of that. It's just kicked around too loosely.
Yes, sir.
So be real careful about that word love and that word friend.
All righty. All righty. You're listening to The Compensatory Concept, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. As a matter of fact, Talktainment Radio is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, and, of course, politics. Now, here's one that I'd like to share with you, and it's called It's Your Time to Travel. Now, you can join host Ricky Tyus of Tyus Tours and Travel, and Perrine Hill of Perrine and Associates, specializing in special events and tours that have been in the travel industry for over 20 years. Both Tyus Tours and Travel and special events and tours offers individuals with many travel options. Using their expertise, they will find amazing getaways and vacation packages full of fun and excitement that will provide you with 4 or 5-star guest experiences that exceed your expectations, but not your budget. They will discuss and share a variety of destinations around the world to suit every dream and every budget. Now, that is broadcast live on Tuesdays exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, and that's radio the way it should be heard. I guess we can open up the phone lines, and we will, and you may call by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and I will try to get your questions in the question rotation, and then as soon as they pop up, we will read them. Mr. Fuller, I don't know if you were aware, but they're on ESPN and ABC, the American Broadcasting Company, they've been airing the OJ Simpson documentary. I guess it's in 5 parts. I've watched part 1, and part 2 was on last evening. Part 3 is tonight. Part 4 is, I believe, on Thursday, and then part 5 on Friday, going into detail about the OJ Simpson's case and what happened there. Have you seen it or heard anything about that?
Well, I've heard a lot about the OJ Simpson case is being revived and pumped up with a lot of air and whatnot, and given a lot of air time, presented, represented, and depicted, that's another word you can say, and redepicted and reinforced, and let's have another recycle of it again, and let's go over it again in fine detail, and let's talk about it again. And that's what appears to be the case. So the question is, in order to achieve what? But then, in the system of white supremacy, Mr. OJ Simpson is classified as non-white. He was allegedly involved in the killing of two people who were classified presumably as white. And so that makes it a racial issue. So racial issues are always very prominent, either directly or indirectly,
Yes.
in a system of white supremacy. And particularly when it involves any type of harm coming to people, because that's what racism is about, harm of one form or another. It's about doing harm. That is what is taught. And the reaction to people doing harm. So, but why it is resurfaced and regenerated and presented again at this time as being very, very prominent in the field of law and basically the area of entertainment, according to the code,
According
is
to the
considered
code.
to be entertainment.
Yes, sir.
And the question is raised, why? And that answer would come from, presumably, people who are making the presentation. They are the best people to answer the question. Why is this, a focal point of interest? Or you think, whomever it is who are presenting it on television and in the movies and whatnot, and remakes of movies that have been made with OJ Simpson, Mr. OJ Simpson, as the star, as the centerpiece, and all the other stars around that, centered around that case that came out in the 1990s. It's a historical piece or what? And, what are we supposed to learn from it? What are we supposed to do about it as people here who are looking at it? These are questions that could be asked, but they have to be asked of the people who are presenting it. I know I'm not presenting it. And so who are the people who say it's time to talk about the O.J. Simpson case again? And our reasons are as follows. And then they should be able to enumerate them in ways that people can understand.
Yes.
The reasons, that is.
Yeah, the reasons.
I don't know the reasons.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I strongly suspect it has something to do, if a racist has anything to do with these productions or with the redistribution of these productions, it is for the purpose of giving strength to the system of white supremacy. Now, that's a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
One way or another, because racists do not do anything except try to maintain, expand, and or refine what is already in place, and that's the system of white supremacy.
Okay.
And that's in every area of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Any move that they make is always, without exception, something that will give strength to the system of white supremacy, either directly or indirectly.
Okay. Before we go to...
Hello?
Yes, hello? Oh, okay. Before...
Hello?
Mr. Fuller? Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you now hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Are we ready for the phone calls? Okay. Let's go to line number 1, and you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question, please? Okay. I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's go to a Gmail here. Let's see here. Mr. Edwards writes, greetings, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Bobby. I want to ask Mr. Fuller, does he think it is okay to visit relatives such as mother, father, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, just to see how they are doing? I know he says that black people should not visit anyone unless it is constructive. Is just checking on my family members, especially elderly members, considered constructive?
Sure, if you're going there for a constructive purpose, you said visit them to see how they're doing, and you're checking on their health or their quote-unquote welfare, anything that is constructive. Anytime you contact anybody, anywhere on the planet, whether it's someone of what you call blood kin or not, it's supposed to be for a constructive purpose. Now, this is real important when it comes to black people, particularly in the Northwestern Hemisphere.
Yes, sir.
Because we all carry a certain amount of poison. And when we contact people, some of that poison spreads.
Mm-hmm.
That poison was placed there by the white supremacists. We have a certain amount of hostility, of animosity that's been placed in all of us, because the system that we were raised up in is all about hostility and animosity. I mean, you approach people almost with your fist balled up.
Yes, sir.
This is why you walk among a whole bunch of black people just walking down the street. You can almost see the suspicion and the latent hostility that is among black people. You don't have a feeling of safety and security and happiness and all of the things that they say make the good life. You don't have that feeling at all.
Yes, sir.
Walking the streets of most big cities, that you're surrounded by people who are just thinking about doing something to make you happy in a constructive manner, that are interested in helping your welfare, and you helping them to do something constructive.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, when we visit in each other's places of residence, we should have it in mind. Am I going here to bless somebody out, as they say in the old folks' language?
Yes,
used
sir.
to be.
Mm-hmm.
Or tell them something that they shouldn't be doing or should be doing and all like that?
Okay.
Or am I going there to make constructive contributions to their existence? And they make constructive contributions to mine.
Oh.
And if you can't answer that question to a yes, then you don't have any business making that contact.
All righty. Okay, Mr. Edwards, there is your question, and there is your answer as Mr. Fuller addressed the issue. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Line number 1, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question? We can hear you. Go ahead, brother.
But, you know, is it better to give discounts, or should I just say, hey, everyone has to find the money somehow? I was curious of Mr. Fuller's thoughts on that.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
You only let people have money that you can afford to give them, or merchandise. If you're in business, if you can afford to give it away, the merchandise you have, or some of it, then do that. If you cannot afford to do it, in order to keep your business going, you have to tell them, you'll have to go to someone who has more than I have, who can afford to give you something. I cannot afford to give you anything. I have to sell it to you, and I cannot sell it to you and you not pay me. That's the law of compensation. I am in business to accumulate money so that I can expand my business, and then maybe I can give you discounts once I can expand. But I can't do that if you come in, you can just tell them how the business is run, how businesses are run, how they are set up to run. And you are no exception to that. Say, once I make a whole lot of money and I can expand my business and buy merchandise in a greater quantity maybe, and make deals of all kinds where I can have discounts, on the merchandise because I'm buying in bulk, because that's the way some businesses work. Say, now that I can afford to buy a whole lot of stuff that I bring in here that you need or want, and I can get it at a cheaper price, then I can charge you a cheaper price. And I will keep doing that so that the prices on my merchandise will keep getting cheaper and cheaper. And that will make it easier for you, for me, and for everybody. But I can't give you the little bit that I have accumulated, because then I can't go and buy from the people who are not going to give me anything in order to bring this merchandise into my store. They're not going to give it to me. If they gave it to me, then I could give it to you. But they're not going to do that. I have to pay for it. So therefore, that's just the way that works. In other words, you have to tell them how businesses work if you have the time. I mean, sometimes the person who comes in, and that includes young people who come in and steal candy off of the counter if you're selling that type of thing, then you tell them, hey, I won't have any candy for you to steal if you keep doing this. I will be out of business, and this place will be boarded up like the rest of these places around here. Now, you keep saying you want to support black business. You cannot support black business if you come in and take things, or if you borrow, you say you're going to take things out of here, and you'll pay me later, and then when I ask you about the payment, you say you don't have it, which you probably don't. I understand that, but I cannot stay in business like that. And it would just be another boarded-up building, and you won't be supporting black businesses, which you say you always want here. So it's just a matter of explaining things to people in a way that they understand. And if they don't understand it, well, then so be it. But that's the way it's set up. That's the way it is. These are the cards that you have been dealt, and that your customers have been dealt. And you do not run the world. This is the way the world is set up, and it wasn't set up that way by you. So it's just a matter of explaining things. And the people who come in and rob you, they're certainly not helping you, because they shouldn't be robbing anybody.
Exactly. All right, my brother. We thank you for your call. And speaking about a call, Mr. Fuller, would you address the eulogy of Muhammad Ali?
Well, we're talking about significance now, and so what I have written, I just made a few notes here.
Okay.
When asked to talk about the significance of the existence of a person, offer these questions. And it's 5 of them I have here. Question number 1, what did the person do? Question number 2, what did the person say? Question number 3, what are the constructive effects of what the person did and said? Question number 4, what are the non-constructive effects of what the person did and said? And then number 5 is the most important question. What should all people do and say that will prove to be the most constructive results of what the person did and said when applied to one or more areas of activity? Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and/or war, counter-war. But I'm going to go over that last one again. What should all people do and say that will prove to be the most constructive results of what the person, in this case, Mr. Muhammad Ali, did and said when applied to one or more areas of activity? In other words, if people are eulogizing and eulogizing and eulogizing the existence of Mr. Muhammad Ali or any other person on the planet, if you keep saying this person is your icon, this person is your hero, this person is somebody to pay attention to, then you say, okay, what is that supposed to mean when you interact with all of the other people who are still here? See, that's the clincher.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of white people who are out there saying Muhammad Ali was their hero. Okay, your hero in what context? And if he impressed you that much, what are you supposed to do with the impression that you receive from him when it comes to interacting with the people who are still here?
All righty. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on WCRS-FM 98.3 Wednesday and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. More of your questions and more of your Gmails coming up next on Talktainment Radio. All righty. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. You can download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And we started off talking about what Mr. Fuller wanted to make a clarification on white friends, and we'll have him address that again. Now, if you would like to call in, you can do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Before we go to the phone lines, Mr. Fuller, could you quickly go over those five things about Muhammad Ali's eulogy? Someone wanted to know what they were, so just quickly, could you go over those five things again that you mentioned?
Okay. It's just questions.
Yeah,
and this
questions.
would apply to anyone.
Yes.
I mean, if you're talking about Thomas Jefferson or Mark Twain,
Okay.
or Rosa Parks, okay. So, number one, what did the person do? See, when you make an icon, or so-called, whatever that means, a person that you say, hey, that's somebody to pay attention to, that's somebody who I idolize.
Okay.
You know, because people sometimes use that word. That I believe in idolatry. I idolize this person.
Okay.
So the question is, what did the person do that you idolize? What did the person say? Because all people do and say something.
Okay.
So what it is, but they do. Everybody does a lot of things. So just pick out the things that the person did that you idolize.
Okay.
Because you're talking about something that the person did. What did the person say? You're talking about something the person said. That's number two.
Okay.
Number three, what are the constructive effects of what the person did and said? So you look around and say, now this person did and said a lot of things. Now, what were the constructive effects of what this person did and said during his or her existence? Or during the period of time that you're talking about? What did the person do or say that had a constructive effect? All right.
Number four.
What are the non-constructive? Because sometimes people idolize people like John Dillinger and whatnot who did things that presumably were non-constructive. John Dillinger was a bank robber. All right. So you pick out those things.
Okay.
What were the non-constructive effects?
And number five?
And then number five, what should all people do and say that will prove to be the most constructive results of what the person did and said when applied to what the to one or more areas of activity? And then you go through all of the areas of activity that would apply to that person. What did the person do and say that you should follow? That's a simple way of putting it.
Okay.
You should do and say the same things or something similar to it in economics, in education, in entertainment, in labor, in law. How did the person interact with law? How did the person interact with politics, religion? Muhammad Ali had a religion. Should you copy what he said about his religion and what he should do about his religion and what his religion called for him to do? Okay. Sex. Do you do what Mr. Muhammad Ali did in the area of sex, whatever that was, or didn't do, and in war? Do you believe in saying the things and doing the things that Mr. Muhammad Ali said and did when it came to a discussion or when it came to some interaction with people on the subject of war? See?
Okay.
And are you going to say that you approve of this and follow it? If you say he's your icon, and this applies mostly to a lot of people, I would say, and this is my footnote, who are white, who said that Mr. Muhammad Ali was their icon, a person that they admired, a person that they would presumably like to follow in his footsteps. Okay, I went through the 9 areas of activity. Would you like to follow the pattern that he set? Or just pick out any one of the things, or two of the things. You'll say, well, I didn't believe in everything he did, but I believe in some of the things. Well, be able to cite what some of those things are.
Okay.
And repeat them.
All righty, let's go to the phone lines. What line are we on? Line number 1? Okay, line number 1. You are now on with Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Yes. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. My question to Mr. Fuller is, what does a victim of racism, white supremacy, do to another victim who he or she catches stealing from him or her on the job before he or she reports it to the higher up? That's my question. I mean, if I may say this real quickly, I've already did something. I didn't turn it in, or I didn't report it to the higher up. I sort of handled it on my own, trying to follow logic, and it seemed to work out. But I just want to know what Mr. Fuller would say about that. Mr.
Fuller?
I didn't understand the question.
Okay, sir, could you shorten your question so that he can address it, please?
Okay. I'm sorry that I can hear myself echoing.
Well, you cut your radio down, and then it would be better.
Okay. All right, that better?
Yeah, go ahead. Now, just state it quickly so he can answer that for you.
Okay. What does a victim of racism, white supremacy, do, or say and or do to another victim of racism, white supremacy, that he catches stealing from him or her?
Okay. Catches stealing.
If that makes any sense.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
That he does what?
What do you do to another person who is a victim of racism, white supremacy, whom you have caught stealing?
Oh, you catch them stealing, you say that's got to be compensated for. In other words, you take something from someone that you shouldn't take.
Yes, sir.
You can't justify stealing, okay?
Yes, sir.
And so you just simply say, hey, you have to pay whatever the penalty is for what you stole. That's the law of compensation. You took something from somebody. You don't want to copy after the white supremacists. They steal whole people, put them on boats and whatnot, and send them somewhere to work for nothing. That's stealing.
Yes.
That's big-time stealing. We don't want to perpetuate that type of thing. You don't even want to steal from people who have stolen from you. We want to get rid of stealing altogether. Ask people for what you want and what you need. And try to get them to give it to you, or work out some arrangements where you can work to get it and whatnot. But don't steal from anybody.
Okay.
You'll never be able to steal enough anyway, all right, to do you any good. Everybody who tries to steal ought to know that by now. I mean, this little petty theft, shoplifting, and all that type of stuff cut that out. We
Okay.
shouldn't be known for people like that.
Okay, but do you turn that person in to quote unquote the man?
If necessary, yes.
Okay.
Because they're turning themselves in by stealing
Okay.
from you.
Okay.
Yes, they're coming to you and taking, and then say, and then call it snitching. That's another thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
they say, well, I was trying to steal. I tried to steal your car and you caught me. I mean, now, hey, we are black people. We got to stick together. Don't snitch on me. No, I'm going to break my finger pointing out you to the whole world that you tried to steal my car and you need to pay for what you tried to do. And if you actually got away with it, for sure you're supposed to pay for it, whatever the penalty is. I mean, you bargained for that, and you looked for it, and you chose to do what you did. You didn't have to do it. You did not have to do it.
Right.
That's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had to do it. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. I mean, ask for what you want, because there's somebody out there who has what you want that will give it to you if you ask enough people.
Yes,
we
sir.
all come into the world asking, and we never stop asking. Stick with that. You come into the world begging, and if you and no matter how long you stay here or how short you stay here, you beg all the time. You beg for help. What is begging? Asking more than once. That's all it is.
All righty. All right, brother. Thank you. Thank you for your call. We definitely appreciate your call. You're listening to TalkTameRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can download the TalkTameRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. That's radio, the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTameRadio.com. That is radio, the way it should be heard. You can call in by dialing 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. I will get your Gmails, and we can... hopefully we can read it. Quickly, we still need donations. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but you know what to do. Just go to the TalkTameRadio.com homepage and click on the donate button. Then under the donate button, the amount. And then, of course, you can click the total, the number 4. You can click continue just above the charge cards, and number 5. Fill in the pledge information and click continue to complete the pledge. I think you can also, if you have a printer, you can print up that. You can also go by our mailing address, which is the letter K and the letter E, World Network, LLC, doing business as Talktainment Radio, 462 Walnut Street, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio, 43206. And make sure that you add your email address so that we can send you out your tax-deductible forms, because all donations are tax deductible. Mr. Fuller, a question again on your book and the word guide. Where can we get it, and what is the latest information for those who have just tuned in?
The latest information is the same as it was a few weeks ago. It's been about a month now, and that is it'll probably be from 12 to 15 days before you can go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com, and that's the website, and the book should be available from 12 to 15 days from now.
Okay.
Roughly. It might be sooner than that, but I'm just doing an outside estimate based on the information I've been given.
Yes, sir.
Go to producejustice.com somewhere along about 12 to 15 days from now, and you should be able to order the textbook for victims of white supremacy and the additional word guide.
Okay. Now is the information going to be the same on for those who are overseas or in South America or in South Africa? Because I do get a lot of calls. A brother from Spain called me the other day and wanted some information on the book. Is the information the same for them, or are we still working on that part?
They're still working on that part. That is a very difficult part. I understand. I've been informed of that. But I have people who are trying to work to get the book shipped overseas, and they say they're trying everything they can to figure out how they can make that arrangement at a cost that would be sensible and compensatory.
Okay. All righty. Let's go to the Gmails. I got one from Brother Washington. He says this, Mr. Fuller, is white supremacy in the, quote, refinement stage? And if so, why and for what purpose?
Oh, the white supremacists go through the system of white supremacy goes through 4 stages, apparently. And this is what I put in the textbook. Establishment, they got it started at one time or another, otherwise it wouldn't be here. And that's maintenance. Once they got it started, they had to maintain it. So you establish, then you maintain what you have established. And they have done that ever since the beginning of it. There's never been a break in that. And then you expand it. Now, what do you mean by expand? You mean you take in more and more people. So there are more people on the planet now than there were, say, 1,000 years ago. So as people are born, most of them are of color. So they come in the system of white supremacy because that's the only government that you can really call a solid government on the planet.
Yes, sir.
So you're expanding the system because you're taking in more and more people all the time into the system as your victims. And then you go into the refinement stage. Now, refinement means you make it look like the system of white supremacy doesn't even exist. To whom? You make it look that way to the victims.
To the victims, yes, sir.
Because that's the easiest way to control your victims. When they don't know what the system is, if people are born in prison and they don't know that they're in prison, it's easier to control them. You don't have to stand over them every day with a gun. I mean, they'll just walk around in the prison yard thinking that they're at home because that's all they've ever known. They've never known anything else. And that's the refinement stages. You put the finishing touches on what you have already established, just like refining, your house or whatnot. You go around once you get it built, and you say, how can I improve on it?
Okay. All right. Then he says finally, Mr. Fuller, where does white supremacy come from, and why are there white supremacists?
Well, it came from the idea of royalty. That's just my own assessment, and I think that if anybody studies it, it has the same pattern of what you call royalty. What's royalty? It means I am born. I mean, whatever gave me birth decided that I could lord it over other people, that I could become the boss of other people, that I am more important than anybody else, and therefore I can dominate and mistreat people if I wish to because I am royal. And so somebody looked at that because that idea has been around before, presumably, there was any such thing as racism, white supremacy. The royal idea that one person looks at another person and say, I should be your boss, and I should tell you what to do, and it doesn't matter if it's right, wrong, whatever. I mean, I just assume that I can do that. I can dominate you, and if I want to treat you correctly, I can. If I want to treat you incorrectly, I can. But you shouldn't have any say-so at all about how I treat you. And that's what you call royalty, all right? I am royal. You are not. You are subject to me. You are my royal subject, and I am the royal person. I tell you what to do. Now, someone apparently thought of taking the royal idea and putting it on a color basis. And that's how white supremacy, presumably, according to the record, got started. I don't know when. Some people say it 400 years ago. Some people say 600 years. Some people say it goes back as far as 2,000 years. I say I don't know.
Okay.
Why do I say that? Because I don't.
Because you don't know. Is that the same thing as white privilege?
Well, royalty goes with privilege. So
okay.
That's another thing is saying, but privilege just means that, you might have some privileges that you have a contract with someone that you have these privileges. But white supremacy is not a contract with his victims. The victims were taken by brute force.
By brute force, okay.
All right? So therefore, that's supreme. See what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Supreme is a stronger word than privilege.
Okay.
See what I mean? And the white supremacists mean, hey, if you have color in your skin, I can do anything I want to with you, and you better not object to it.
All righty.
That's a different thing altogether.
Okay. Before we come to the end of the first hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., co-hosted by Mr. Bobby, a question from Brother Fred. He says, Mr. Fuller, now I understand the logic behind why we should know why and who commits a homicide willfully and unjustly, but what's the logic behind why we should know who is involved in an interracial sexual relationship? I heard you say that we should know who doing this. What's the logic?
The logic is we should know what is going on in the area of pedophilia. In other words, if there is sexual intercourse between a white person and a non-white person in the system of white supremacy, the non-white person is in a childlike position. All non-white people on the planet are the children, the illegitimate children of the white supremacists. Not necessarily by blood kin. That's not the premise. The premise is we're in a childlike position. This is why the white supremacists sometimes call their victims boys and girls or boys and gals.
Mm-hmm.
Why, and we resent that. I've heard black people being referred to, hey boy, boy, boy. Well, what he means is you're not a man. In other words, you are subject to me. You're nothing but a child. I have to hold you by the hand. I have to, if the plumbing breaks, I have to fix it. If you need plumbing installed, I have to fix it. I have to install the plumbing. I am your master. I am the know-all and be-all. That's what white supremacy means. You're subject. So when that goes into the eighth area of activity, it's just like the warden in a prison having sexual intercourse with the prisoner. Now, they may emotionally be all involved with each other and really what you might call have this great sexual attraction to each other. Apparently they do, because it goes on all the time on a huge scale. But it's the same as the warden having sexual intercourse with the prisoner. That's the best way that I can put as an analogy.
Mm-hmm.
So you get the picture in your mind. The warden goes into the cell, has sexual intercourse with the prisoner enjoys it, and the warden enjoys it. But what's the difference here? The warden has a prisoner that he or she is taken advantage of, and that prisoner is in a childlike state, like prisoners are.
Yes.
And so, therefore, that's the same as pedophilia. That's child abuse. It's right at that same level.
Yes, sir.
The warden is not supposed to do that. All right? Sexual intercourse is supposed to take place between equals. The victims of white supremacy, the non-white people of this planet, are not the equals of white people on this planet.
I hear. All right, stick and stay, don't go away. You have been listening to the first hour of. Welcome back to the second hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. on TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. Yes, you are definitely in touch with the compensatory concept, and this is radio the way it should be heard. You can call in at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7, the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, at gmail.com. If you missed the first hour, it will be on podcast, but we started off by having Mr. Fuller explain white friends, and we will have him do that in just one moment here. But first, we'd like to say that we still need your donations, and you can do that by going to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage and hit the donate button. Then under donation, click the amount that you want to add. Then 3, click the total. Then 4, click continue just above the charge cards. And then number 5, fill in the pledge information and click continue. And baby, you are done. Then if you don't like to use that method, you can also mail us by going to the letter K and the letter E. World Network, LLC, doing business as Talktainment Radio, 462 Walnut Street, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio, 43206. And please, if you use that method, please be sure to add your email address to that so that the radio station can give you a tax-deductible receipt. Then you can take care of that on your income tax. And you would want to do that to Mr. E. Dozier at talktainmentradio.com. Mr. Fuller is the author of the compensatory, or rather the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Notice that, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. It is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. Before we go to the phone lines, Mr. Fuller, you started off the first hour speaking about white friends, and you wanted a clarification on that. So for the second hour, we're going to start that off again. Explain that, and then we'll take some calls.
Yes. It comes down to definitions. What is a friend? What are the qualifications? The word friend should have a list of qualifications in order for anybody to be a friend to anybody. All right, so what is the top of the one thing that should be on that list in the definition? For one thing, a friend is a person, first of all, actually, if any person walking this planet right now, if they're going to be a friend to anybody, they have to believe in justice. A person that doesn't believe in justice cannot be your friend, regardless of whom that person may be. A person that does not believe in justice and proves that he or she believes in justice, that's the only person that's qualified, according to what? Logic, to be a friend. So, the compensatory code is, they take the position, or rather it takes the position that nobody's a friend to anybody. Why? Because the dominant government on this planet is a unfriendly government. It's called the system of white supremacy. And here's the statement. Here's the codified statement. The white supremacists, racist man and racist woman, do not allow their victims to have friends. That means that all of the non-white people on this planet in the system of white supremacy, according to compensatory counter-racist logic, are friendless people. They have no friends because you don't have justice anywhere on the planet. And you can't have friendship unless you have justice, because justice and friendship are practically synonymous, just like justice and love. You don't have love anywhere on the planet, even though people go around and proclaim it all the time. You have stacks and stacks and stacks and thousands and millions of books about love. And people talk about love all the time, all kinds of love. But it doesn't exist on this planet. So what does exist? Just associations. That's the best you can do in this system. If you want love and if you want friends, first order of business is you have to replace the system of white supremacy with what? The system of justice.
The system of justice.
Then you can have friends.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you have when you don't have friends? You have associates. That's all you have. Look at the word friend. Look at the way people use it. You know, you're my friend. Well, you're my friend. Why are you always talking about me behind my back? And they say, well, yeah, they do that. We're friends, but we do that, you know. And well, wait a minute. And you're saying derogatory things about me? And like I said earlier on the program, there's a line in a song saying, I didn't have any money, or I lost all my money. And all of my friends thought that was funny. Now, how can a person be your friend and think that it's funny when you lost all your money? So we have a habit, a terrible habit, of just calling anybody a friend. Just somebody that you've been knowing a long time. You say, that's a friend of mine. Well, wait a minute. What's the ingredients that go into friendship? So different people got different ideas about what friendship is.
Yes, sir.
But it's right alongside of that word love that's been kicked around like forever, and people ought to be real cautious about using that word love. And like I said earlier, a person goes before the judge, and the judge said, well, why did you kill her, sir? And he says, Your Honor, I killed her because I loved her. Well, now, question. What do you do with people that you hate? I mean, you're not making sense, mister. But that's the way we talk.
Yes, sir.
Because in the system of white supremacy, words have been distorted and bent out of shape so much that a lot of them don't mean anything.
Don't mean anything.
Or you can't figure out what they can possibly mean.
Okay. All righty. Let's see here. We're going to go to the phone lines. Let's go to the phone lines. Wait a minute. Let me get it up here. Number one? Okay, number one. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Mr. Bobby. First of all, I'll say, let me just, you know, you guys haven't been streaming on our TuneIn lately. I can't pick you up there.
I don't know anything about that, but anyway, go ahead with your question.
Okay, look, yeah. Now I hear that with the white supremacy, and we're not going to change these people. Only God can do that. We're going to have to deal with them just the way that they are, because it wouldn't be beneficial to them to change. They like that system because they can abuse people. They're not thinking about justice for us black people. Now look. Now, since you're not streaming, I like to, maybe Mr. Fuller can give me the answers on air here.
Okay.
Mr. Fuller, now, we see this shooting down there. We see this young white girl that was murdered the day before that. I mean, I say, look, they didn't care anything about the young black girl in the bikini that the cop flipped, or these girls they flipping around the classroom. I got a lot of compassion, but, it's going to be hard for black people to show some feeling for this young singer that was killed. Now, look at all the people killed in this Hong Kong gay thing. They were mostly Mexican. There may have been a few, Hispanic people. It's the white people that go to Vietnam, Korea, World War II, bomb these countries, and for 10 years, bring them back over here. They open up stores in black neighborhoods. I mean, that's like a reparation, being able to come here and being given these 10-year tax-free loans.
Okay,
Why should we feel sorry for these folks?
Okay, there it is. Why should we what now?
Why should we feel? I mean, I'm not saying
no. Just just your question. Why should we what now?
Well, all these people, Trump talk about I'm building a wall. Why is the white letting them come across the border? They let European, Ukrainians, and Russians come here to build up the white population. They the ones letting these Indians, Koreans, everybody come here. What's Trump talking about?
Excuse me. Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. What question? What is your question to Mr. Fuller? I was trying to get at
with the white supremacy and all the different people coming over here. How can they complain, Trump and these whites, if it's the government that's allowing people to come?
Okay, all right, Mr. Fuller.
Okay, you have one government, and that's called the system of white supremacy. Now, that is either true or false. I say it's true. Now, the system of white supremacy is set up to do what? Dominate and mistreat people of color in all 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, 24/7, everywhere on the planet.
Yes.
Where non-white people are. It doesn't matter. There's no such thing as a border to the white supremacists. They pay no attention to borders because they're the ones who make the borders, okay?
Right.
But they go where they please. All non-white people go where they are sent. So if you're talking about black people coming here or non-white people coming there or going here, it's because the white supremacists say that's where I want them to be. They're not going to be anywhere except what the white supremacists want them to be. The whole world has been made a prison, the entire planet. And all of the non-white people on this planet are in that prison. And the prison masters are all of the white people who believe in and practice white supremacy. Now, those white people that don't believe in white supremacy are not the prison masters. But the smartest and most powerful of the people on this planet are white supremacists. That's self-evident, okay? So they determine what the fate of non-white people are going to be. We have to understand that. And one thing that they do is confuse people in all of these 9 areas of activity. So therefore, when they move certain people among other people, certain non-white people among other non-white people, they do that with the purpose of stirring up animosity. And this is why black people can't stand each other, because we have been programmed to not stand each other. And so we fight and curse each other out and try to come up with new and better ways of saying insulting things to each other. Write songs about each other that are put down. I mean, going back to just on the streets of, of the old days, I mean, they used to call it playing the dozens. It's anything that's derogatory.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't even know what playing the dozens mean nowadays, but it means saying something about your mother. And this, you might say, this stand on the street corner. I'm talking about going back to the 1920s. And just anything that's derogatory that you can do, anything that's going to be harmful. And the white supremacists puts all of that in the heads of their victims.
Okay.
Why? Because it helps the system of white supremacy become stronger.
Okay. All right. Thank you, my brother, for your call. Okay. What line there, Galen? Line number 2? Okay. Line number 2. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. I have a question.
Okay.
So, and excuse me if I'm paraphrasing Mr. Fuller here, but I believe he said that certain non-white people or so-called minorities should not be held responsible for their negative views on black people. For example, in the area of the United States where I live, there's Asians and Hispanics, and some of them have similar views to white supremacists. And do you think that they should be held responsible for their negative views?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
It should be pointed out. That's what we do on this program. See, we all been played, and we've been played against each other.
Yes.
See, I mean, a lot of black people say, man, these Arabs coming in here, man, they're opening these filling stations and whatnot. I mean, and I mean, they just taking over and whatnot, and they don't like black people. Well, wait a minute. Let's look. Black people don't like black people. Who likes black people? Name somebody that likes black people. No. The white supremacists have taught all people of color to have contempt for themselves. And not only that, to have contempt for anything that makes sense.
Yes.
I'm going to say that again. One thing that the white supremacists are good at is going among non-white people and get them to worship everything that makes no sense at all.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been so carefully programmed, because they are good at it, to really worship things that make no sense at all. We go looking for situations that are absolutely non-constructive. I mean, we like anything that's going to break down something, not build up anything of value, but anything that means tearing down. I mean, we look at the females and whatnot and try to figure out a way to tear them down. to make them less than what they are. I mean, talk to them in that way. And then think that that's, normal behavior. And then look at the people who move into the neighborhoods, and they look at us, and they see what we are doing because we're not doing anything. And so you say, why is it they don't like us? Well, what is it that we do that is likable? Let's answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
That fella that just got in this area of the world from Bangladesh or Pakistan or someplace, and he hasn't been around black people. And once he's around him, what does he experience? What does that lady walking down the street from someplace from overseas, and she comes to this area of the world, the Northwestern Hemisphere, and she sees the conduct of black people? Now, is this something that everybody in the world should want to engage in? Copy after black people? Just walk around behind black people all day, get on the bus with them, and listening to all those cell phones, where you're hearing somebody telling somebody, MF this, MF that. Is that something that a person should try to learn and imitate and like? And they say, hey, they ought to try to be like us. Well, heaven forbid. Nobody should be like us. We shouldn't be like us because we have been beaten down so much that we have very little that makes sense to contribute to anybody, truth be told. So, as a bottom line, we shouldn't be alarmed about people not liking us.
Right.
Because we need to change from what we are to something that we should have been in the first place. And that is universal man and universal woman.
There you go.
Rather than glamorizing ghetto living. Because there's nothing to glamorize about it.
Yes, sir. All right, my brother, thank you for your call. I'm overdue for a break, so let me do it now. Talktainment Radio is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, and, of course, politics. Now, here's one that I'd like to share with you very, very briefly, and you've heard me share it many times, but it follows our show. It's called Crossing Cultures. Now, host Julia Lynn Walker has great conversation regarding the diaspora. Now, if you don't know what that means, look that up. If you have Google, Google it up, and it'll tell you what diaspora means. But anyway, if you're interested of knowing your history, Julia Lynn talks about that and more with great guests. And you can tune in to Cross Cultures every Wednesday, broadcast exclusively here on TalkTainmentRadio.com. And last week she had a brother in from here, but he went to Cuba to see what's going on under, I guess, with President Obama breaking down the barriers, and it was a very interesting show. But anyway, Crossing Cultures, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. If you'd like to get in contact with the show and have an opportunity to speak with Mr. Fuller, you can do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. Now, I'm not sure if I will get you on today, but we will put you in the question rotation. Don't forget to send in your donations. Please do that. You can do that. And also, you need to get a copy of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. All that is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. And I had Mr. Fuller speak on that earlier, and I'll have him just say a brief word on how you can get the book and where you can get the book, and then we will go to the phone lines. Mr. Fuller?
Within the time frame of 12 to 15 days, the book should be available at producejustice.com. That's produce like in production, producejustice.com. If you go to that site now, it will say temporary out of stock. But that's if we're having some administrative problems that are being straightened out, and I have been told that it will be straightened out, and from 12 to 15 days maximum.
Okay.
Go to producejustice.com.
All righty. There you go. All right. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number 3. You are now on with Neely Fuller Jr., and you can be heard. What is your question?
Hello?
What is your question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Good morning. I just wanted to know, it's actually about the book. I wanted to know if the book that will be available in 14 days is going to be an updated version of the book, or will there be any new material in the book, or is it just the same material?
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
What was the question? I could barely hear her voice.
Could you speak up, ma'am, and repeat that again so he may hear you?
Okay, I wanted to know if the book that will be available in 14 days is going to be an updated version of his book, or is it the same material?
I still couldn't make it out.
Okay, she wanted to know if the book was going to be an updated version of the book, or is it going to be basically the same material in the book?
Hopefully it will be an updated version, expanded, I say revised and expanded.
Okay.
That's what the hope is, and that's what the arrangement is supposed to be. But we will know that for sure when it appears. It will either be the book that's out there now, the 1984 version, or it will be the revised and expanded edition. And I tend to believe that from the information I'm getting, conflicting information, it should be the revised and expanded edition.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for that call.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Fuller, since you're going to be doing that, will there be an extension or expansion or an updated version of the Word Guide also?
No.
Okay.
The Word Guide will be the same. But as time goes past, there might be an updated version of that, hopefully, if I am breathing long enough to bring that about. Reason being, people keep asking about different words that may or may not be in the book, because there are a lot of words in the English language, and new terms are being added.
Yes, sir.
And some words are being revisited.
Okay.
For instance, a term like what? Politically correct. That's a word. That's a term that's been around for some time, but now it's beginning to mean different things to different people. Same term, correct? For some people who have heard it, politically correct. What does that really mean? I mean, one of the presidential candidates, Mr. Donald Trump, keeps saying it over and over again. He says, "Hey, I'm not about being politically correct." I think that's what he has said. And this political correctness, that should be pushed aside. Well, if it should be pushed aside, first of all, what is it? What is politically correct? I do know what the word politics means. It means interaction between people, policies, police, being polite. That's the basis for the word. So interaction between people relations, you might say, people associations, politics, poll tax, and all like that. Okay, so, and then the word correct, the word, something is correct. It's either correct or what? Non-correct.
Yes.
So when you say politically correct and you are against it, well, wait a minute. What does that mean? You are against people doing the correct thing when they interact with each other? Or what does it mean? So that means that whomever is using the term, like all terms, should be able to define what they're talking about.
Okay. All righty. From the Gmail, a question was asked a while ago by a lady by the name of Tanya. She said, is there a difference between how educated blacks are treated by white supremacists than those who don't know a lot? And then she asked an additional question, is what happened to black people's curiosity and desire for learning, and why aren't we motivated?
Why are we motivated?
Why aren't we motivated?
To learn?
I'm just reading it as she wrote it. Why aren't we motivated?
Why aren't we motivated to do what?
Well, I guess you could say to learn.
Oh, under the system of white supremacy, the white supremacists go all out to make sure that black people, their victims, are not motivated to do anything of constructive value. Now, anything that they perceive to be of non-constructive value, they will help black people do a lot of it. They will pay big money once they look at it and say, what are these black people doing? What are they trying to do?
Mm-hmm.
And if they look and see any black person doing anything, the white supremacists' antenna will go up and say, okay, according to the white code, is this black person supposed to be doing this? Is this good for the business of white supremacy or not? That's their criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's anything of constructive value, anything that's going to be of constructive help to non-white people, either directly or indirectly, the white supremacists are going to oppose it. They have to. That's the only way they can stay in business.
Yes, sir.
So that's the codified response to that question. The white supremacists do not want black people to ever do anything that's going to be constructive to black people. Only constructive to the system of white supremacy, so they can keep doing what they are doing.
So they can keep doing what they are doing.
Right.
Okay. All righty. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can check us out on WCRS-FM 98.3 on Wednesdays and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available, and all you have to do is download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. Man, that is radio the way it should be heard. I want you to stay right there, because coming up next, we're going to have more of your phone calls and, of course, more of your Gmails. All this and more coming up next on TalkTainmentRadio.com. All righty, welcome back to the second slice of the action here on TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, and all you have to do is download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host of the compensatory concept on Talktainment Radio with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., the fine host. And if you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and then I will put your question in the question rotation, and then we will have an opportunity at some point, maybe not today, but at some point, get to your email. And to finalize the last question from Tanya, Mr. Fuller, she indicated that she deals with businesses that or with inventions in the D.C. area, but she said that she couldn't get any assistance, in that area. What should be her next step?
Keep trying.
Okay.
That's all I can say. The white supremacists do not want, I'm going to say that again, black people to do anything of constructive value. And if she's having difficulty with her invention, getting people to pay attention to it, that might be because the white supremacists figure that what she's doing may have some constructive effect. Now, if it's something that they figure is going to have a very non-constructive effect, particularly among people of color, then they'll take a look at it, because they want, anything that you come up with, an invention, an idea, anything that is presented in the system of white supremacy to the general public, and specifically if it's going to have some impact on what black people, non-white people do or don't do, the white supremacists will take a look at it and see if it's going to have a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect. If they think that this might have a constructive effect on non-white people, they are not going to pay any attention to it, not going to help you with it.
Okay.
And so keep that in mind. But the only thing you can do, since we are all in this prison called the system of white supremacy, just keep trying, because that's the only thing you can do. Like in the movie Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne just kept trying different things.
Yes, sir.
Different approaches.
Okay. That was from one of our loyal listeners, Tanya. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Oh, yes, sir. Basically, I have a comment for Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, a lot of people call in these talk shows and they say, well, the reason why white supremacists do what they do is because they're afraid of genetically being annihilated and all this nonsense. I don't believe that. I believe what you've been saying when you come on this radio station where you say they do what they do because of fun, glory, and materialism. And as for example, I'm sure you remember this, back in the 70s, they used to have black South Africans in those diamond mines over in South Africa, where they would spend 6 months a year away from their families, living in a shanty town with no running water, no facilities, no bathroom facilities, and they were getting paid $1 a day. And when they came out of those diamond mines, the white supremacists would check their rectum and their teeth to make sure they're not hiding any diamonds. Now check this out, Mr. Full. They're getting paid $1 a day to go through all this hell just so the white supremacists can take a diamond necklace and put it around his wife's neck. Now, why would you make somebody go through all this hell just to put a ring or a diamond necklace around a woman's neck when really a diamond has no nutritional value at all?
All righty. Well, thank you for your comment, sir. Thank you so much. Mr. Fuller, you care to respond to that?
Well, the white supremacists put value on things that will help them to be stronger in the practice of white supremacy. And they are the ones who determine the value of everything, including people. That's why they even use the term. Well, what is this person worth? That's how they speak of people, period, particularly people of color.
Okay.
In other words, a black person was considered a form of money. In the form of, when you make a slave out of a person, you're talking about money.
Yeah.
You invest money in a slave, and then you have that slave make you more money by doing your bidding. When and where, if you're a master, he or she wants that slave to do whatever is to be done to bring in whatever it is that slave master is to gain from having ownership of the slave. And whatever the slave is able to generate in the form of diamonds or cotton or something that can be turned into paper money or something where you can buy and sell more goods and all like that,
yes,
all the better. That's all it is. And so they'll use anything. Diamonds, they'll use rocks. The white supremacists can suddenly say, if they wish to, since they have control of everything, they'll say diamonds are no longer of any value, which sometimes they do that. They'll say diamonds now have a lot of value.
Yes.
And then 6 months later, they'll say, well, that was 6 months ago. But here it is. You're talking about January. The worth of diamonds was this, that, and the other. Well, this is June. So that's changed. Diamonds are now worth half the value that they were in January. And you say, well, how can that be? I mean, they're the same diamonds. And the white supremacists say, because I said so. That's why.
Yeah.
I am the master. I determine the value of everything, including the leaves on trees.
Yeah, kind of like what they have done with the petroleum. Thank you, brother, for your call. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go to the Gmails here. I have a question from Alexander. Alexander says this, Mr. Fuller. Are or were your parents both non-white? And if we can only go as far as the races permit, how as non-whites do we overcome this system?
Oh, in answer to the first question,
okay.
Yes, both of, my quote unquote legitimate parents are non-white.
Okay.
Now I say that legitimate parents, that's my choice.
Okay.
Because actually all the parents of the way it is now in the system of white supremacy, all of the parents of every non-white person on the planet are the white supremacists. They are the illegitimate parents.
Okay. Illegitimate parents. Okay.
My actual blood parents are both non-white.
Okay.
Yes. Definitely.
Okay.
So sometimes people have, some years ago, somebody said that this Neely Fuller, I've heard about him. That's a white guy, and I don't know where they got that from. You have to go back maybe a couple of, 2 or 3 generations to find what you might call, what a lot of people might call some white blood.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, whatever that is. But that might be true of every black person you pass on the street.
Yes.
Except those that are what you might call completely black. Somebody who hasn't been touched by a white person at all. But most of the people on this planet, who are called black, are really, if you look at them closely, including people who you say, hey, that's a show-enough black dude. If you look at them in strong sunlight, what will the actual color of that person be?
Okay.
The person will be dark brown.
Yeah.
If you don't believe it, you can do it right now, wherever you happen to be. If you're a person standing outdoors, pick out the darkest person who you call black in a group of black people. If you're standing on a street corner, wherever you happen to be right now. But make sure that the person is standing in strong sunlight, because that's the only way you can tell. If everybody's kind of standing in shadows, you might not be able to tell with the average person's average eyesight.
Yes. Okay.
But if you look at the average black person, people that we call black, sure enough black, no dispute about that. That's a black dude.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at that person and look at that person closely, in strong sunlight,
the
person that you call sure enough black, you will see, if you look closely, the person is dark brown.
Let me ask you this. Does that include the person that Dr. Kevin Cosby in the eulogy, one of the eulogies at Muhammad Ali's funeral, he quoted that somebody was boot black. And the image came to my mind is, really black. Would that same thing apply to them?
Yes. If you walk down this average city street, you have shades of black.
Okay.
That's what it is. Black is the base.
Yes.
Everything came from black. Everything came from darkness.
Everything.
There's more dark in the universe than there is anything.
Well, that is true.
All right. The universe is mostly dark. So you have dark people in the universe. And so how black is black?
Okay.
Astrologists and astronomers even say that even when you look into space,
right, what do you see?
You see blackness, but in that black space, now watch this now, you see what? Black holes.
Yes.
You even have black holes in the blackness. See what I mean? So
right,
how black
you do.
is black?
You do.
Yes, they say we discovered some more black holes. Well, where did you discover them? Did you discover the black holes in a sea of whiteness?
No.
No. These black holes are in blackness. Well, which one of them is the blackest? Well, the blackest part of it is where you see the black holes. Okay, well, do the black holes have black holes? So how black is black? How far into black can you go? How far back into black can you go?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And then on the other hand, how far forward can you go before you're no longer black?
Exactly.
Because let's look at some of the, Adam Clayton Powell.
Yeah. Yeah.
People looked at him and say, is he black?
They did say that.
And Adam Clayton Powell said, black is just not a color. It's a way of thinking.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it's all shades of black. Is an albino black? Yes. But an albino is about as white as anybody can get.
Yes.
Yeah, but I know some albinos. Malcolm X was considered a little pink poodle, he was called in his classmates.
Wow.
Yes. That's what he said himself in his autobiography, I think.
Okay, all righty.
That, that other kids would kind of make fun of him, calling him a pink poodle. But, but is Malcolm X black? I would think so.
I would think so.
Most people say, hey, Malcolm was a strong black man.
Yes, sir.
All right. But so was Marcus Garvey.
Ooh,
so how
yes,
black
sir.
is black?
Yes, sir. Now, Marcus Garvey was really a black guy. Okay, let's go to line number 2. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Good morning. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Good.
It's basically a statement, but I have to put it in a question form. With all the areas of activity that's ran by white supremacy, I feel that if we're going to change ourselves and our minds, we need to come up with a way of really directing our energy to these areas of activity with a black state of mind. In other words, like Elijah Muhammad, everything that you do in each and every one of these activities, we need to go at it thinking in a black state of mind, because I feel like that's how and why Elijah Muhammad was so successful, because in every area of activity, if you were a Muslim, you went at it in a whole different way than every other American went at it, because Elijah Muhammad taught in a whole different way. And that's why we got our Malcolm X's and our Muhammad Ali. So to put it in the question form for Mr. Fuller, not to criticize Elijah Muhammad and what he did, how do you feel about the way he went about confronting white supremacy and, going at each area of activity?
Okay. All right. Mr. Fuller?
Okay, that's a direct question. Now, my response to that is according to the Counter-Racist Code. That's why I wrote a code of thought, speech, and action, showing you what to say about everything, what to do about everything, what to think about everything,
yes, sir,
as suggestions. And my response to that, I'll take it right out of the code. When anybody asks me about what any other non-white person is doing or has done in regards to dealing with the race problem, my standard codified response is and always will be, he did what he did, or he said what he said. And that's it.
Okay.
And you can look at it, study what he did, study what he said, and then think, speak, and act accordingly.
Constructive.
Same if it's a female, if it's Sojourner Truth, or Harriet Tubman, or Phyllis Wheatley, just Muhammad Ali. Study what he did, and I say, whatever you did, you study it and make up your mind under the United Independent Compensatory System, which is what I adhere to, what you are going to do as an individual person as a result of studying what Elijah Muhammad said and what he did and the way he went about doing it and saying it.
Does that
because he did what he did and he said what he said.
Yes.
In other words, I am not authorized or not qualified to criticize or in any way editorialize.
Right.
What Elijah Muhammad did, what Adam Clayton Powell did, what Martin Luther King did. All I can say is he did what he did, he said what he said. Study what he did, study what he said, and act accordingly, according to what you think you should do as an individual person, because that's what I do.
Okay. Now, does that mean asking a question to yourself, is what whoever said, is it constructive or not?
Well, only the individual can determine that. See, I mean, what's constructive you know.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Does the individual
I mean, you
say to his or
always look
herself,
for whatever it is that you think will bring about the result.
Okay, I got
the
you.
key word here is result.
Yeah, result.
Whatever the constructive result be. That's just like all the suggestions that I make in my book. See what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Now, there's a reason for this. So you don't get into the habit of comparing one black person's efforts with another.
Okay.
Because we are all prisoners of war.
Okay.
So any prisoner can figure out, according to his own judgment, how he's going to dismantle this prison.
Yes, sir.
Because that should be the objective.
Okay.
And some people will say, we're not even in prison. There's no such thing as the system of white supremacy. I've had people say that to me. And my response to that is, well, you said what you said.
Okay. All right. You know? From the Gmails, we have a question from Kelvin. He says, hello all. Once a victim of racism understands what racism is and how it works, what's the best approach to codifying other victims? There are so many of us lost in confusion. The counter-racist code may never reach its maximum.
Okay, the answer to that question is, the procedure is what? What I say on this program all the time. The system of white supremacy is what? A problem. That's the assumption that you make. That's a problem.
Yes,
That's
sir.
a problem government.
Yes, sir.
That shouldn't exist. The government that should exist is a government of justice.
Yes, sir.
So, what do? It comes down to what you do. What you do is do what? All problems, and I said the system of white supremacy is a problem, are solved through the process of what? Questions and answers. No exceptions to that rule. So the minute a person, you say, how do you get black people on board? Only when they start asking questions. How come I can't get no job, man? I can't figure out how come, I'm qualified for a lot of things. I figure out how either, a lot of people get jobs, some black people, and a whole lot of white people, they got jobs, but I don't have no job. Why is that? Now, he's asking a question.
Yes, sir.
And your answer is, you want to answer? You want the correct answer, sir? Yeah, I want somebody to come up with some answers. I need some money. I don't have no job. I can't get a job. They keep turning me down. You say, well, that's because you're in the system of white supremacy, and you are a person of color in the system of white supremacy. And the person might start arguing, like most black people do. Oh, man, I don't want to hear all that stuff and whatnot. I mean, I need some money. If I can just get some money, I won't have no problems and all like that. Say, sir, you asked me a question. You asked me why you don't have a job.
Okay.
It's because the white supremacists have decided that you are not going to have a job. You are subject to them. You're
Right.
not subject to anybody else. If they want you to have a job, you'd have a job right this minute.
Right this minute. Someone wanted me to address to you, wanted you rather to address the situation that happened in Orlando, Florida, where there was a mass shooting. I've heard some saying that this is the worst terrorist attack or whatever in this ground called the so-called United States. There's been some conjecture if that's true or not. Wounded Knee, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, and so forth. But they wanted to know your thoughts on the Orlando shooting.
According to counter-racist logic, I always start with that.
Yes, sir.
According to counter-racist logic. This is counter-racist logic,
Okay.
meaning logic that's against racism.
Okay.
Okay, you're going to address mass shootings.
Mass
Now,
shootings.
let's work through the logic. What exactly is a mass shooting? See, you always start with the words that you're given. Hey, I heard that the other day. This is the worst mass shooting, and the way I heard it, in the history, the word history was used here,
Yes, it was.
of the United States. Well, first of all, we come down to what's the United States? Well, no one is more united than whom? The white supremacists. All right? So you're not talking about the United States of America. Discount that. Because America doesn't exist yet. Because America is a place and a people who practice justice, and nobody practices justice. That's an idea that everybody should try to be an American, because Americans are people who practice justice. But nobody can practice justice in the system of white supremacy. So if you have a mass shooting, you look at just those two words in isolation, and then you attach them to something from there. And what do you attach them to? If you're going to talk about the greatest number of so-called mass shootings in the history of the world have taken place during and because of the existence of the system of white supremacy. So the greatest number of mass shootings that have ever taken place anywhere in history is every mass shooting, every shot that was fired by anybody into anybody in the system of white supremacy since the beginning of white supremacy and the beginning of quote-unquote mass shootings. Now they say, what is a mass shooting? They say any shooting where somebody was shot in a certain place at a certain time, and the number of people who were shot is what? What I heard, the figure was 4. 4 or more people. That constitutes a mass shooting. So think of all the millions of people who have been shot in the system of white supremacy, and you got your greatest mass shootings in the history of the world. That's the way to look at it.
Yes,
As
sir.
a victim of white supremacy, you say no mass shooting taking place in Orlando, Florida. The greatest mass shootings is every person who was shot under the system of white supremacy since the beginning of white supremacy.
Since the beginning. Well, you know, when we hear the music, you know what that is. So let's do this. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.